Hi there, welcome back. This is Justin, KJ4FCZ, and we're going to talk a little more about getting your ham radio license. It's been a while since we've put any posts up, and hopefully you've been studying hard and you're looking through your technician class book and are getting ready to take your test. Let's take a little time today and let's look at some of the questions that might be on your question pool. I'm going to skip around. I'm not going to focus too heavily on any specific area. Like I said, hopefully you've been looking through the book and are getting well acquainted with the material and with the questions. Let's start out by talking about what a control operator is. A control operator is the person who's in control of the operation of the radio. It's pretty simple as far as that goes. In this case, this radio here is my radio, and I am currently the control operator. I'm the one who's ensuring what's being transmitted or not being transmitted and how the radio is being handled. And that's the job of the control operator. It's my responsibility to see that this radio is not abused. If I leave this radio on and an unauthorized person comes and transmits on it, of course that goes against Part 97 rules of the FCC, and I could get in big trouble for that. And I have a responsibility as an amateur radio operator to make sure that my radio is secured and handled properly. As such, I have a little passcode on here just because I do have different people coming through from time to time to prevent anyone from transmitting even by accident. So I'm the control operator in this case. If you have your radio, whether it be a little handy-talkie or it be a mobile radio or a base station, you would be the control operator right then and there. And you have certain responsibilities as a control operator. Another term that's used a lot in some of the questions has to do with broadcasting. And broadcasting, some people seem to think of as just simply anything that you send out over a radio or over the airwaves. And that's not the FCC's definition of broadcasting, or really the correct definition. The real definition of broadcasting has to do with when you're sending items out to a mass group of people, or particularly the general public, like an FM radio station, AM radio station, TV. That's broadcasting. They're sent out over the airwaves for the general public. And of course, as an amateur radio operator, you can't do that. And there's a question that asks you that. You cannot transmit you cannot broadcast your transmissions. You cannot send them out to the general public. You have to keep them on the amateur bands and within amateur regulations as such. So no retransmission to the general public. That would be broadcasting. That's not allowed. It says, when does the FCC allow an amateur radio station to be used as a method of communication for hire or material compensation? Of course, the correct answer is only when in accordance with Part 97 rules. That's always an easy answer there, because you know the Part 97 is what governs the rules and regulations of the amateur radio license and the bands. And so if you're in accordance with the Part 97 rules, then you'll be following that accordingly. What type of communications are prohibited when using a repeater auto patch? The answer for this one is calls to your employer requesting directions to a customer's office. Remember, no business is allowed on amateur radio. If you're going to use the radio for business purposes, then you need to get a different kind of license, not an amateur radio license. You'll be operating on different frequencies that the FCC has set aside for that. So, control operator and broadcasting and some of the rules that come with that, something to be very familiar with. A lot of this stuff is pretty straightforward once you get the hang of it, once you read through it and you start understanding some of the terminology. Well, let's talk about the radio. I mean, this is what amateur radio is all about. It's about the radio equipment, it's about transmitting and whatnot. So one of the questions here says, what does a microphone connect to in a basic amateur radio station? Well, this right here is a transceiver. That's because this radio has inside of it a transmitter and a receiver. So it's a transceiver. It does both transmit and receive. In the old days, and it still is common in some radio operator stations, they would have a separate receiver and a separate transmitter. And this is a transceiver, transmits and receives. Well, you're given four options for this. What does the microphone connect to? Well, in this case, it's connecting to, you would say, the transceiver. But that's not one of your options. It's either the receiver, the transmitter, the SWR bridge, or the balun. Well, it's going to be either the receiver or the transmitter. And then just simply think about yourself. You're using the microphone not to listen. The microphone is not what we listen from. That would be the speaker. The microphone is what we speak into, what we're going to transmit from. So that's going to be connected to the transmitter. And which piece of station equipment converts electrical signals to sound waves? Well, you've got electrical signals, right? You're talking and you're getting electrical signals from the antenna, which comes into your radio, and then it's converted into sound waves that your ear can interpret and makes it intelligible for it. Well, what do you hear the signals coming through on? A speaker. So the correct answer there is a speaker. What is the term used to describe what happens when a microphone and speaker are too close to each other? And many of you have probably heard this on PA systems or even on people's hearing aids. And that is audio feedback. When the transmission and the received signals start looping. That's audio feedback. What could you use in place of a regular speaker to help you copy signals in a noisy area? Well, I'm very fortunate. I got a quiet little area here, a little room where I can be on the radio and I can have it quite loud and really try to pick up the signals well. But if I was working with a bunch of other operators, maybe in a communications trailer or a busy room at the emergency operations center or something like that, it would be a lot more difficult for me to hear. It would be chaos. So we would use headphones. That's a great way to make that stuff more intelligible. And what is a good reason for using a regulated power supply for communications equipment? Well, the answer to that is to protect your equipment from voltage fluctuations. Okay, so we've talked a little bit about the radio. We have the transceiver, we have the microphone. In my station, a little higher up, you probably can't see it, is a power supply. And that's what we're converting the AC power to DC so that the radio can run. Because the radios run on 12 volts DC. They run off a car battery, essentially. And so if you're going to run it inside your house off of the outlet, you have to have a power supply. And that was one of the questions we just looked at.